Thanks, David. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. For very good reason. I'll introduce myself. I'm Ian Walsh from the King Country, sheep and beef farmer. I shouldn't put that photo up here, but it's the nature of the beast. We live in a rainfall of about 98 inches, well spread, and you know about the hill country in the North Island. I'm going to talk to you today about a system that has been developed over a long period of time, part of it as long as man has been on this earth. The short is we're going to talk about defining the most optimal type animal with functionality that will perform and fill some of the needs that David has noted. I'm going to tell you about that through my story, my life story, because it all hinges, and I think if you take my points, about 8 points there on that printout, they're there for a reason. I'm not going to speak specifically to them, I'll speak about them as I walk through. You can just tick them off as we go, and if there are any left over at the end, I'll be only too pleased to answer them. Once I drive this thing, I'll be right. I farmed in the King Country all my life, only lived in 2 houses, one that I was born in and the other that I purchased. I had a passion for animals when I was quite young. I received my first genetics at 10, first farm at 19, with a passion and 100% pet. Quite a challenge, but when you're young and bulletproof, I don't suppose it matters. I've bred animals from day one. I just had a passion. I was more commercially orientated. But as I grew a little wiser, I felt certain pressures impacting me. So I developed I met a lot of interesting people on my way through my life, a lot of good science people. And as pressures impacted me, perhaps like today, and this is not unique, we had the 87-93 situation, it was very similar to now, except we had 27% interest in 1987. But we had other pressures earlier than that as well. So I decided to inquire what was really putting pressure on me outside the farm. So I met a lot of interesting people, and you'll see the reason for that comment shortly. Right, defining the optimal animal, what is it all about? I farmed them all my life. I developed a system for my own use, and it grew to the neighbours, to the region, all around New Zealand. I was invited to Australia 12 years ago, and South Africa 6 years ago, where I spent 15 months of my life. We've developed a very big client base, focused mainly on commercial farmers, because due respect to any breeders here, because I'm sort of a breeder, I suppose, in my past, you guys run the industry. To be frank, if you don't buy the rams or bulls that are out there, the stud breeders don't have a business. So I'm very focused and have a very good client base of top commercial farmers. So I thank many of you who are here today as well for your understanding, and we've gone forward in quite large steps. It's rather interesting in the media recently, we're witnessing a change in science. We've had a period for the last 40 years of quite pure genetic selection, and now I see people are looking and trying to define the more efficient, optimal type animal. It's a work that I've been with for my whole farming career. I've just ticked over 50 years of practical farming and 50 years of paying levies, so I well understand the implications there. I also put my private money up to develop Falkirk. I've got a big story to tell. I'm going to be quite brief, so they may open up a lot of questions, but I want to give you the image, and I know a number of you are quite interested in what Falkirk is all about. We are a solution. It's not only animal selection, it's basically, to me, genetics impact your whole farm operation because they create the revenue or not. And we know about that. Right, very briefly, the elite dimension of a carcass animal. You dress that one up and you imagine the animal as it appears, very alert and intelligent, particularly on the maternal side. We did a lot of work with flocks and herds. It's about profile, it's about structural correctness. So when I see an animal, I see a skeleton. It's like this building. It'll stand for many, many years. If it was poorly built, it would probably collapse, just like the animals can do. We've also learned about the total physiology of the animal. I've learned it from a farmer perspective, first of all, dissecting carcasses on the kitchen table, and then it became more refined than that. And I'll add to that as I go quickly. I knew I couldn't fulfill my vision on my own. That vision had to come to bear about 1987, and I'll take you back a year or two to 1985, and we all know what happened then. 84, we had a change of government, we had a year's honeymoon, and they said, we don't want to know rural New Zealand, you're on your own. That was devastating. New Zealand went grey, rural New Zealand, and there was lots of pressure on families. It was time to go, so I pulled together a group of people to form Falkirk Scientific Foundation, and I paid tribute to all these people of the input over a number of years. We're deadly serious in what we do. You haven't heard about us because we kept a low profile, but I'm just going to very quickly, you can already see I've got some talented people here. The policy in 85 by government was to say to science, you had to earn a third of your income by commercial means, or else you'll fail. So that carried on until this moment. Some of the senior scientists actually resigned at that point, or the following couple of years. I fortunately caught 3 or 4 of them, and they have put their best foot forward into Falkirk, as well as carry on in the private world. If you probably note the attributes of these people, we actually impact every farm, have the ability to impact every farm in about 12 segments. Every detail that impacts you through your business, we have ability here. A couple of my mentors, I just mentioned Clive Dalton. He was a mentor long before I had a firm idea of what I was going to do with my life, and he's a big influence on me. Falkirk is about understanding genetics from conception and right through to retail value. And a little later on I'm going to have a second part, and I'm going to show you some marketing that we've carried out on sheep meats, branded, high quality product. And for me today, I'm going to hopefully influence each of you to become marketers. Because as a farmer, my take on what's happening at the moment, there's lots of plans out there for us and how to spend our money, but it's not about big corporates or big conglomerates in terms of the marketing world. I've learned what marketing really is, and you must have the product, a quality product. I've been in the media to state, would you believe that 50% of our product, meat and wool in New Zealand, is not effectively marketable? And it's absolutely true. I live with it daily. So we have an issue, but we are certainly turning that around. There's a very old overhead, in fact it's our very first one, and it illustrates where we sit. I'll just brief it. About commercial reality. Farmers make, how many decisions do you make in a day? Serious business decisions. Many, many, many. We need good information, but we must be quick on our feet. So what we did as a group, you notice I had an international market of red meat on my foundation. Through John Burgess's knowledge of life of selling meat into 80 markets, we went to market directly and gathered their thought process. Basically what we did do is take it directly back to farm. Well, it's my kitchen table, our boardroom table actually. And I said to my group, I said, we must fit this specification of the required product onto a live animal. It's too late when it's a carcass or it's in a bale mixed. It must be on the live animal, and that's what we do. That's why I'm here. There's a lot of talk over the last few years. We've had our battles, but we tend to battle in a different way. We get on with our business. And the proof is in our client base and the product that they are selling. I know we well know about Pure Genetics, and I've got 3 or 4 guys with a couple of genetics degrees each on our trust. But that's not the whole story. There's a new comment around about epigenetics. That's not new either. In fact, it started with man, but it was highlighted in 1942 by a chap, Waddington, a professor, who coined the phrase. And it's written, you can read it on the webpage. We were quite criticised the last 20 years that we were only playing with phenotype. I'm happy to work there because I was originally told that that was only an environmental impact. In fact, it's greater than that, and this is what it really means. The physical constitution of an animal is determined by its interaction of its genetic constitution and the environment. That's quite a different thing that I was taught. That's the whole animal, and it has a term called epigenetics. That's very briefly, if you just like to look at that, I've kept it in crisp terms of what it really means in farmer terms. So over a 23-year period, we have understood, created and implemented the principle of epigenetics for livestock selection for you guys, so you've got a most valuable tool, the most valuable tool I've ever had on my farm, because it's directly related to my bottom line of profit, or not. I'll just have a little breather here, but that's an interesting quote that comes out. When we change streams in science, we have to be very careful we don't pollute the water, quite frankly. Epigenetics, part of it is stock judgment. We've learned to read the expression of the traits as they express through physiology, and that's cost us a lot of time and money. There was great learning, but we dissected many animals to understand how an optimal animal is composed versus a medium versus a poor animal. We basically put them back together and studied them live. And so we taught ourselves, it's a really old art, stock judgment. Like our ancestors, the first day they put a footprint on this earth, probably applied that principle, which one to kill, which was the best one, probably the slowest one, the worst one, I guess, in those days. So just to, I like mixing up with my client base. I've got a client here who I will get to say a few words. Grant, where are you, Grant? About his impressions of the impact of Falkirk on his operation.
Thanks, Ian. It's good to be here, talk to you guys. Just over 3 years ago, we weren't happy with our stock performance. Over our whole flock. So Ian came in and assessed their sheep. As he was going through the sheep, the response was immediate from the sheep that he took out to the sheep that he kept, so the A's and the B's. Been farming for quite a few years, and I'd never seen or been taught what Ian showed me. With a live animal, he was able to dissect that animal into its various components until you had the optimal animal. And as he was doing it, you could talk to him and he could tell you why that animal is not the optimal animal. In 3 years, it seems a very short time that we've been involved with Ian. We've come a very long way. Our lamb yields, our lambing percentage have come quite a long way. It's been huge for our business. We're more efficient and pretty much happier farming the way we are, because we're not having wastage that we used to have. And the results for us have been absolutely fantastic. And we've still got a long way to go, but it shows you can come a long way in a short time if you have the correct structural properties in your animals. Not only sheep, but beef as well. So, yeah, it's been very good for us.
Thanks, John. Great. Those two carcasses there illustrate the difference that you can extend left or right. It's not about the perfect animal. I've seen tens of thousands of animals in 3 countries, and I haven't seen what I'd call the perfect animal, but I've seen many, many optimal animals. And they can fit that far. Your left-hand side is a longer type animal. Sorry about the dark at the bottom, it's just the state of the play today. And then we've got the thicker set animal, more muscular. You'll probably recognise your breed there. There's probably 20 carcasses between those two. So we're not about a breed debate. So that's one issue I've got rid of out of my life. I was involved in 3 breed societies, understand how they work. I was inspector, judge and president of one. And I could see it was part of the problem. I know their use is very good, but the fact on the big picture, it is part of an issue. It's about a type of sheep or a type of cattle beast that we can measure. So we take the breed debate out, because when we get totally commercial and go to market, it's not about breed at all. It's about product to specification. So that's what drives me, the commercial reality. We have done the science. We've done some very good science that people don't know about. We do that internally for our own use to build up our own index values. Won't go into that, but it's been done. It was in 1997. We've done a lot of dissection work. There's one I carried out more recently in South Africa, and we got similar results. So it was confirming what we'd believed and found much earlier. The difference is financially significant. It's huge. There's 2 animals in the 90s. On the basis of their selling, they were probably sold on the same schedule and received almost the same value because they were the same carcass weight. Being practical people, we took them to market, to a supermarket in Auckland, that over the hill is St Heliers, where they've got a lot of crinkly stuff, or used to have, and said to the owner, please cut, tag, price and sell to best advantage. That was Monday. We came back Friday. We had no influence. The one on the right, you can see is a type of sheep, heavy bone, not so much muscling. You can only cut that into basic cuts and put it into a supermarket bin. That retailed that day at $100. The other one retailed at $142. There was a clear message a long time ago. We paid $12 extra, but there were $30 to be taken and shared. It was worth going for. I said to the team, we've got a ball game. We certainly have. Fred Hallaby, as you noticed, is one of my directors, and if it wasn't for Fred, I wouldn't be standing here. We used his freezing plant, special cutting room there. He gave us his 2 top boners where we did our dissection, and I learned so much from those 2 guys. They talked all day. They loved it. They were off the chain. They were on a private project, and they chirped like little birds all day about where the product was going, this cut, that cut. Great education. And we broke animals out, as you can see, right to muscle, bone, fat, meat, dimension, the whole thing. We measured, measured, measured. I talk about measurement. Of course, when you measure something like that by weight or by length or with a rule, you can't do better than that. I use ultrasound on a live animal to measure the same thing. I'm looking for their bone fat meat ratio relative to the mass. 4 main factors that make up an animal. It's just wrapped up in a sheepskin, and away we go. So it's not about single trait at all. Not about single trait at all. I can say that because I was one of the first to use linear prediction systems in the 70s on beef and sheep. But it didn't give me the answer that I needed. I needed the whole picture. And so we dissipate that to our client base. It's rather interesting. Lots of work being done here, eye muscle area, and people boast about their eye muscle size. That's a bit like being at school behind the shelter sheds. Who's got the biggest dick? Quite frankly, it's bigger than that, It's a very reliable measure, but it's a stepping stone to somewhere else. Heritabilities are traits, not ours, it's the industry. I just quickly look at that, and you see eye muscle is not as highly inherent as you would think, but it's a very reliable measure and takes us into a leapfrog down here. It's taken a lot of work to discover the pathway, but absolutely correct. Because we follow that right back through commerce, through slaughtered animals, and I guess I'm building to say that we are predicating your animals for yield grading. The only true system that actually does that has been developed for that, as well as defining the optimal animal. So that's where we prefer to work. Muscularity, I don't talk about muscle. I talk about muscularity, which to me is the meat or muscling over the whole animal. We have a skeleton, as I said before, and then you mould the form. Some old words coming in here, but it's about form. It's about longevity, one of the most important traits in an animal. I'm just quickly going to take you through and explain how we dissect a flock or herd. In simple terms, I usually have a lot more information on the sheet, but to give a clear view here, we have the idea of the animal. We take the live weight, the fats, and the eye muscle area. Lots of that information around. I got no problem with that, but it's what you do with information. It's also how you take it and how accurate you are, for sure. Otherwise, if you're inaccurate here, your indices at the other end can be way off the mark. So I have a very small team. I've got one here today in Guy Martin, but I have a half a dozen others. Some are ultrasound operators, and others just do the hand-eye livestock selections, and some both. This could be your flock, but this is a King Country set of rams quite a few years ago, 01. And through this work on this group here, we've sort of set, that was the middle of the national flock in our view. So we've appraised these animals with the actual data, interface that with main trait heritability, and give you an index value. From the best animal to the least important one. And this is quite a good set of animals, and yet we've got the spread. No matter what's been done out there in terms of livestock selection, we've still got a spread. And I promise you, it has got wider. So something's not quite clicking out there. I call it genetic unbundling. It's been happening, and it's quite serious at this moment, and hence 50% of the product not effectively marketable. Back to this one. We understand one or two things. We know about growth. What is it? Someone can help me here. Why do we weigh animals? It's a good question because we do a lot of it. Why do we do it? Just to fill in the day? Why do we do it a week apart or a month apart?
Measure performance?
Yeah, it's about the growth. We want to see the growth factor from those animals. And we'll see some differences as well. We understand it's a trait. It's sort of a mystical one, but never mind. We understand there are two traits involved in optimal growth. It's the mass thing, but it's also muscularity. It's what you grow. When you get that in balance, you can then have a very efficient type animal and a very high yielding carcass. I'm keeping this very short. We've got intellectual property that I won't go near, so when you get close I'll let you know. The fats always interested me. We know about overfats in our history. We did have a period where we were totally overfat. Then we fixed that by keeping the males intact, and we got onto the growth thing, and we got quite the void. In fact, the void is a bigger problem on farm or for slaughter than overfat. Just the fact is that the cost to grow fat is about 4 times the energy value than growing red meat. So there's some economics creeping here, seriously. These are quite tight because they're on a hill country farm, but I've bred animals with a ribeye fat of 17 or thereabouts. What a waste of money. An animal, an optimal animal, only needs enough energy, only needs enough fat reserve. You've got to back them, they back themselves. So fat and lean, interesting discussion, and we've wrapped this one in with here. That's all I need to say. These black lines here are how we split a flock. We know through our work that our index value below 20 is substandard or inferior. Our terminology in Falkirk is stuff we use every day. That's why we use weights and measures as well, because a farmer uses that how many times a day? It's either with a ruler, or a litre of drench, or a K of nails, or a tonne of fertiliser. We're au fait with these systems. Above here is what we call standard. They're very effective animals. Their progeny will go to market. Up the top we have elite. We know what that means. We have now super elite, AA, triple, A, AA and triple A. As we've gone about the 3 countries, we've found very good genetics as well, above my expectations, and often on commercial farms. There are far better animals than the farmer gives himself credit for, because we're always seeing the tail end of the mob. So that represents quite a good shot in terms of national flock. 60% up here, which is retention. And we know what we do with the next bottom group, substandard or inferior. We actually nominate them, and in a flock, if you need the numbers, they can be made for the terminal. Not ever again will they produce a female. We all know about the inferior because we take them off anyway, and that's the farmer's eye. It's the other cut that makes the difference in improving a flock very, very quickly. I actually use, for myself, I go to 25 and draw a line. So we do bite in, but it works. Out of the top group, you make the top size to your top females, and you get plenty of replacements. Their lambing percentage is a lot higher, and we haven't mentioned lambing percentages here on this property, but Stu, David, we've gone up 19%.
Yeah, most of the things are in.
But that's fairly significant in economic terms and well-being of the family. I'm now going to show you one of the worst flocks I've read. And this drives me. Now I'm going to tell you the whole, I'm going to paint you the picture. I got a phone call in 2001, and it was the shortest phone call, I think, bar one I've had in my life. And it said, "Is that Ian Walsh?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can you help me?" And I said, "Well, if you tell me a little bit more, I may be able to." And he couldn't. He was emotional. So I said, "It's okay, I'll come and see you." So I drove 5 hours to see this family. And it was quite serious. He had a flock like the previous one, which I rate as a pretty good standard flock. He was given some advice to use some other genetics, and the 6-tooth, I said to him, "What's the problem?" He said, "My ewes are failing in middle age, my lambs are dying, and it's not worms." And so when I viewed the flock, I knew exactly what the problem was, but I actually ultrasounded this ram cam. I could have done it hand-eye with one eye closed, but I took him through the process, and here it is. Remember, I said 20 was substandard or inferior? There's 80% substandard, really non-functional. You know, if we stuck to our goal, we had 4 rams, not enough to make this flock. We actually customise a solution for every farm because we're all different. I'm a farmer, I'm rural, I've got a passion for it, and we are all unique, each of our situations. One plan does not fit everyone. We must have empathy with your case. So I looked at the sheet and I saw all the inferior animals here, which are highlighted. They were all quite inferior, but never mind, some were worse than others. So I drew this line through here, and you can see I captured a lot of indiscretion. Suddenly, he said, "Gee, I've got 2 flocks." I didn't tell him he had about 4 flocks, but 2 was enough. And then he said, I haven't got enough rams. I said, what do you want to do? It's about farmers and it's about choice. He said, I want to get back to some reliable genetics. Have I heard that so much since that day? And more the last 2 or 3 years. Reliable genetics. I said, okay, tell me a bit more. Where do you want to go? He said, I want to get into my Coopworthy blood that I used to farm. I said, okay, now we can help you. So we're not about forcing a solution on anybody. We've got a solution available that works very well, but the farmer must play the game. So I broke a rule and I just said to him, here's the phone number of my best Coopworth breeder. And he's an old Coopworth breeder. I said, please give him a ring. I got down the road, I stopped and rang up the breeder and said, if you don't get a phone call in half an hour, please ring this number. And it worked. So we purchased rams with very good index value up here. But interestingly enough, before the second mating, that farmer drew a line through here and took that group out and bought some more high index animals. Do you know he had a better ram team before the second mating than some of his neighbours? 3 kids under 5. Stress out of their brains, the family. They're still farming, they're still married, and the kids are at school and they're really happy. That's what drives me. Very simply, our system between the two, retention factor, 60-40 to me is a good indicator of a reasonable flock. This one here had it all wrong, 15% retention. I was wrong, it was 85% wastage, genetic wastage. That's the problem with our marketing out there. Here are 4 breeders who 5 or 6 years ago sold all their rams. Just let's have a quick look, 58%, 77% retention. We can do a lot very quickly there. This one here, 100%. But you see, we treat him differently. He's also got an A and a B flock. His cut-off point for his A and a B is 40 on index, not 20. So we customise the solution. He's improving, and if you're buying from him, everyone's improving. This one here fascinated me. A breeder sold all his rams in that year, and he only had 25% by our measure effective, but he sold a lot. You see the implications on commercial farmers? Our very best work is progeny test work. This is the breeder I sent that young farmer to. So very quickly, that ram 588 these are his sons that are for sale on ability through here. So that was his percentage breakdown. He had 72% retention. There's a 60-40, so there are 3 families that were quite powerful. This breeder had done a lot of intensive selection and recording for many years. In spite of that, his top family was twice as good as the bottom family. It backs up what we've found about the national flock. But we have a solution, and that work is here. So then we have structurally sound livestock and product. What's all this about? We must kick some financial goals somewhere, and to me, red meat is currency. No question about it. We must kick the goals. When we finished one of our science projects, I called our team down to my property and I said, let's come and have a barbecue and a couple of brandies. It was a really bad day. I mean for weather. So the brandies were quite soothing. But I only had an 8-week-old lamb available for the barbecue, but very muscular. It was too wrinkly in the skin for my program, so we slaughtered it. And we found out something really interesting. As just before we barbecued, we measure everything that moves. So we measured the muscle in here, and we found off that 12.5 kg carcass, it had a muscle size of a 15.5 kg carcass that you'd say is standard or better out there right now. It got there sooner, it was younger, it was quicker. So the economics there, you do your own budget when you go home. It's huge. Save feed, the whole thing is about a kilogram of grass or feed that you grow. That determines our whole profit line. And then on top of that, as David is going to speak, he's creating the dry matter in this incredible climate, incredibly stressful climate, and then you must have the right animal to consume that and convert it. Then you get some profit line that is quite acceptable. Right, I'll just go into the marketing one. I'll just have to change here. Welcome again. I hope I've, in a short version, have given you some idea of how now we can capture the measurements on the optimal type animal. We're now defining a type of animal that actually works for you instead of the other way around. Unfortunately, we've had an environment this last 20 odd years seriously that they needed support, our animals, either through nitrates, injectables or whatever. I believe in an animal health program, but a strategic one. Get your genes pumping, let's take our responsibility and they'll produce for you. So it's really what's sort of more naturally grown. Get your genes firing and you'll bend it. What's all this about? We're actually part of the food chain. And you know what? We create the raw material that goes into the system, so we must get it right. We've learned the hard way right at the moment, get screwed. We say we're getting screwed on price, but as a farmer, I'll say to you, in a lot of cases, we're probably getting fair value. That's why we've got the solution to up your genes so you can get the more optimal value. A number of our client base are very high on yield rating. This is predicated to yield rating, as I said, and we've got the evidence. I'm not just talking hot. That's why we've been quiet. We actually have the proof, and I'm working quite closely with Alliance, with Murray Bereed particularly, have been for some time. And we know quite a lot. We were the first to yield rate in New Zealand in 1997. And I'll show you a photo or two of that as we go through. Let's go to market. I ran the trial. How did those T-bones get there, David? Actually, they're loin chops off 9-month-old lamb. We ran the trial away from New Zealand because there's lots of unique pressures here, which I will understand. Falkirk is about really investigative about agriculture systems, so we understand how agriculture really works. Who pulls what strings and who presses whose button. You have to understand this stuff if you want to run a viable business anywhere. So we learned that. But through my experience in South Africa, which has been huge, it's broadened my mind and changed me as a person, which I bring that energy back to you. We went to market and we broke some rules. I promise you we did. We did not advertise. No one knew our product was going to appear. But you can see it's very high quality, volumes of meat. We went to the supermarket and they accepted our proposition. They said, where would you like your product? Now hang on, we've been told you have to fight for shelf space. They said, here's this good place over here. I said, no, I'd like it there, because you could see it from 2 chain away as you walk down an aisle. They said, okay, and then we didn't push their product aside, and there it is. Branded, of high spec, and it sold out. We were programmed in our minds to be conservative and only so many a week or day kill. But we didn't panic. It's the last thing you do. We just carried on with our kill program, and you know what? The customers waited. They didn't buy the alternative product at all. When ours came back on the shelf, they bought it, cleaned us out again. And then we started offering specialised cuts. And then we had guest houses and restaurants ring up and wanted some lamb shanks and some deboned hindquarters. that they can't sell in New Zealand or South Africa, because the supermarket said to me, can you do something with a hind leg? And I've been waiting 40 years for this opportunity. I said I can. So we boned and took just 2 muscle groups out. Mum and dad meal, mum and dad and 2 kids, went off the shelf. Interesting. Give people what they want and not give them product they don't want, and you try and force it. Not a way to market at all. I scouted around these supermarkets and got the 2 worst chops I could find. Would someone care to tell me which is the most expensive piece of meat in the store? It's basically the same cut as these here, but because chilled fat, you can't bend it. You're not meant to eat it either. It's not good for your health. The South Africans love it though. They have fries, breakfast, lunch and tea almost, and they just love it, but it's not good for your health. So there's the difference. Look at the fillet on this lamb chop here, look at it. Look at the tail down the rib here. We discovered in the 90s that GR measurement was flawed, because where did they measure it? 11 centimetres from the backbone, go in and it's tissue depth. On a muscular animal, they're measuring meat and they penalise you if you've got 15 millimetres of meat. Great system we've had. So yield grading is a must. It's to be developed further, but I think we've gone great strides. So there's our shelf space. It's great. I actually approached the first few buyers, and of course you girls know how to buy. I learned early on through studying the supermarket before we went to market. You buy with your eyes and you're quick, you can make a decision. We sort of ponder a bit and look at everything on the shelf and buy the wrong stuff. So I went up to them and said, interested to know, thanks very much for buying a product, it's the first in the country. Why did you buy it? We're really interested to know. They said the quality, of course. And one lady must have been 75, beautifully dressed, had a shopping trolley and 6 trays went in. So I was going to enjoy asking her, but she was quite indignant. She said, the quality, of course. But what a signal. Beautiful. You must have a friendly butcher as well. This chap, I don't know which is the friendliest butcher, but anyhow, the big guy, the bigger guy, he just loves being out with the customers. Hello, Mrs. Brown, what would you like today? Really old-fashioned stuff, but hey, we've lost that. We also gave them a little printout, and it was true. I actually wrote this the day before we actually went to market, and this wasn't the driver. This was really what happened out there with our client base. So just read it. There's a few key words: naturally grown, about the environment, farmers who work in harmony with the environment, highest quality. Falkirk is really an audit for a live animal, and hence the product meat and wool. We had branded wool as well. It's going through the system right now, and not many people know about it. As we know, there's been a lot of talk in the press about 2 large companies buying and fighting and wasting our time. But one has gone to market with contracts and it's operational. I had a phone call last night, an apology from one of my very good clients in Falkirk who's not here. He was just loading lambs and he's heading up for shearing tonight. He's in the contract and $1.35 above ruling rate. Thank you very much. I think the bottom comment there, value for money. We paid the farmers 40 Rand or $8 at the point of kill because we knew we were going to back ourselves all the way. We put 4 Rand up per K. We got 80 Rand in. The farmer got half of it at the point of kill. We got to run a business. That's pretty fair. So remember, if the only thing you take away from today, if you remember that photograph and how far you can go left or right field with the optimal animal. And I hope the other thing you take away, that when you next shift the mob of sheep, you'll see individuals and not a mob. We got so busy, or made to be busy over the last 20 years. We were rushing around in our quads and utes and dogs flying around. We're shifting mobs. We were flat out. We're dosing, injecting, we're doing all this stuff. Look at the individual. They talk to you every day. So here we are breaking down Fred's plant and learning all about it. We yield graded with a carcass probe that is only in 2 plants in New Zealand because it was developed by a very intelligent individual who is about 96 at the moment and still working. He taught me so much about measurement. This whole thing is about measured product. Brian Hennessy, his name is, and I'll pay him tribute forever. He was vilified by the establishment. His system was run with ag research against other machines, and then the trial was cancelled because I know why. But never mind, you can see there it's very precise in its measurement, and that's also helped us run our parameters, and we could then correlate the information from that through our ultrasound, through our cutting work. So we have 3 stations which we just keep tightening, and we continue to dissect. There we are, yield grading, 97 is the proof of it. And again, Gunther. There's something about innovation, innovative people. There was going to be a very innovative person here today, and I must mention him as Jock Allison. Innovative for a lot of reasons and at a high level. I rate him as an innovator. You can love him or hate him, that's not the point. I'll just talk about innovation here with the probe. That chap Gunther is doing the probe work there, and he's a German guy, a very big guy. They had some visitors through their workshop, this is quite a few years ago. They said, "This is fantastic, look at this technology, this is the future." And Gunther just turned to them and said, "Do you mean to say I've been working with the future for 18 years? Absolutely true. We must clear our heads in this country. We have a great future with sheep and beef. But we must reach out. Innovation, Clive Dalton always said to me, my mentor, when I was a young farmer, he said, "Ian, this is an old scientist speaking. He said that good ideas have always come from you farmers. We've just taken them, embellished them, put them in an order, and given them back to you. In this modern era, they sell them back to us." Just to lighten it up a little, obviously you know what country that is. It's pretty barren there, it's drier than the Maniapoto. It's semi-desert. I put that up to show you a very nice profile. I call it the horseshoe profile. When I see an animal, I select them from the back forward because I see everything in a flash. I see a pelvic area on a female. You see the back strap, the form, and the shoulder, the head set. The whole works in a flash. That's an old ram. He's five years old there. Quietly, I call that shot the perfect arsehole. And it's not a politician. See the meat. See the meat from the anus down to the purse. It's huge. Huge. We have animals like that almost here, and we're getting close. But you see, it's about form. It doesn't matter about breed or species. See the form of these animals, structurally correct and beautifully. That's a 140k goat there. He's on his feet. And I look at an animal, a sire, and say, what are your females going to be like? I can read it. And they'll be nice. They'll be long livers, highly productive, and very efficient. Could be a shorthorn bull in Australia. It's about form. That's the best way to see a tiger. Just walking away from it. I was always amazed. See, there's a deer fence there, only a couple of 3 hot wires low, but hey, that's nothing for those guys. Why do people go and see the lions before they're fed? It always amazed me. I prefer to go after they've had a really good meal. The better chance they'll walk away. If we get all this right, you hit the bullseye. Here is a yield graph from a client of mine. This is 205. And this is used by Alliance for a lot of their field days. It hasn't really dated that much. It's got better though from this client. hit that box 96%. Or top quality wool, doesn't matter. I'm just showing you some of the best sheep handling equipment in the world. I promise you. I read an animal, I turn, and there's another one there. It's fantastic. 9 of them, fully mechanised, that is problem through like that. But they've got personalities. It's far better than my damn sheep crate that I've got. They're good people. I work with them every day when I'm over there. They've got character. Now we come back here with an 80 metres of me. This was the first lot of ewe lambs that came out of the breeding program when we restructured this flock. They were 5 months exactly of age. And David took the photo. He's actually got a better shot on his table in the lounge, and he said it's far better because I'm not in it.
You said that.
But you can see, you study those animals and you see some form in them, over the hind, up through the shoulder, and that's through hitting the flock the first time seriously hard in taking out the more acceptable ewes, and the unacceptable went to the terminal. That was step 1 only. We will look at some animals today. They've been under stress, but that's okay. You've all been under stress, so you'll understand that, except those from Southland. And it rains there all the time. So we have to clear our heads. It's like being in the King Country. You have to clear your heads and appreciate what's happening in this region. And I really admire you guys and families, how you function, because it's a bit similar to Australia and parts of South Africa, where it's semi-desert. Your rainfall tells me you're basically semi-desert. And I do admire your approach. You know, it could be Dooney Merino sheep, Dorpers, 9 months of age. Look at the butts on them. That's the type of sheep that were in that photo with the cuts. But they were weathered, of course. It could be a white Suffolk in Western Australia, it doesn't matter. The optimal sheep fits everywhere. The only constraint is the environment. What I'm going to say here about the optimal animal, it's the best in any environment. If you lift the lid on the pressure, it illustrates its ability and gives you more. Where a substandard animal, even in a good environment, is only punching here and not hitting the ceiling like the optimal. That's the difference. That's what I found as a farmer, and now, I guess, running a genetics business. We've all been there, haven't we? What that overhead is really saying, you can never spend too much on good genetics, because that's an investment. This way here is a cost, a cost, a cost. So knowing is everything, and we have the system that you can understand and trust. See, if you don't, from the future, from here on in, we don't get it right, I promise you, we're going to get eaten. Financially, socially, mentally. So let's go for it. Let's drive for success and profit. And then we can probably enjoy ourselves and have braais like the South Africans for breakfast, lunch and tea, and get a really good quality of life. I've had some good barbecues here as well on this property, so thanks Glennis and David for this segment. I thank you very much, and if there's 1 or 2 questions for this moment, I'm prepared to answer.
Is there any questions? We'll get out to the yards. I'll give you the opportunity to ask questions. Well, you can ask questions at any time, but we're going to get out to the yards now, and if you've got any questions for Ian, we can pop them up there.
As far as I understand it, these animals in September went through towards the pass on that country up there, and they stayed up there. As it got drier, everything was up there. When it got really dry, they opened up the gates and said, help yourself. The tutus were with the mixed age sheep. Interesting, but what a test. It's quite unbelievable in my view. When you get over these animals, you'll see they've still got some form. I did take off the bottom of the B group, and they were feeling the pressure. I could have left them in, but that's not the point. We don't do that stuff. We want to see subtle differences. So what we're going to do very shortly is there are 3 groups in here. I guess as a mob, on what they've been through, they're alive and they'll conceive, and so life carries on. Yep, if you could do that straight away. We've also got, in the pens you may have noticed, just for an example, they got into their Italian muster mob, were woolly, mixed age ewes and some tutus, so I just selected out a group so you can see these animals in the wool and the type of wool that they've got on them. And they look quite reasonable, quite frankly. And then there's some AU lambs over the other side. As David said, there's been some huge steps taken and there's a long way to go, but quite frankly, in another 3 years, you're going to see sheep with that look of those group of woolly sheep in there. They're going to be basically the whole flock like that. With this system, we roll the flock over 2.5 times in 5 years. We don't have to wait 5 years as we put tutus in and take the old girls out. Because effectively, you're not rolling the whole flock over with the split. You're rolling over all the genetic wastage quickly as possible. It goes out the back door. So that's why we've made quite a big gain thus far, and they've lifted up productivity. I guess 19% lambing up is fairly good. I suggest, they haven't got figures on this, but I suggest the difference between the A and B mob is about similar, because we've got that evidence from a lot of farmers who farm them separately, and when they do that, they tend to favour the B mob, because the A mob goes up there, they convert that sort of dry matter, and the B's generally down here because they need more good food at a cost. So it proves the point, and there are a number here that could speak about their lambing differences. It seems to go with physiology, with the more optimal versus the suboptimal. That's what you can pick up, and a lot of it is to do, and I didn't mention about lamb survival or calf survival. We do that work as well because you can measure the survival kit. It's a type of wool that thatches, it's about skin thickness or not, and it's about appropriate fat, and we measure the lot. We also do behaviour and temperament. That comes back to physiology. The balanced, well-proportioned animal, its immune system's punching, is generally fairly relaxed but strong. It's these nervy ones that are more bony, off-type, long, tall, narrow and gutless. So we do that work as well, and it interrelates. It's valuable stuff. So any questions while we're waiting for the draft?
You must have.
Yes. I'll be frank, in my view, I own a private science foundation, and we study this very much. I think we've been through an era, it started 05 and it actually finished in November 08, and we all know what happened then. Financial collapse around the world, and I think it's a culture we can call the greed culture, just for want of a better name, and it impacted everything that we did, even agriculture. So in my view, we probably didn't get the science we needed, and we were basically used for a lot of this pure stuff as an experiment, really. It was experimented with on our farms. I understand genetics fairly well and respect it, but it wasn't the whole story. I want proofed information to use, and I want to work with the whole animal. If we start focusing on the single trait, and there's a lot of issues came out of that, people kept the biggest muscled animals and with the gene, but they accepted then structural differences, and we lost on functionality. They wouldn't hack it up on that hill, hence we got a B mob or a C mob. So I think we just have to put it in order. I think pure science is something that goes on for a long period. Prior to 84, we had scientists who used to proof stuff on the research station and then hand them to us. Because we owned it, we funded it, and we still do. So it's being reasonable, having a reasonable approach to genetics and the whole package. It's about a bundle and not anything in isolation. Our industry has got into trouble, I think, 4 times in my career with fertility. The growth thing is destroying our terminal breeds. Very hard to buy a good terminal ram. We know about the wool one in the 50s, the wool weight, and we have little wee sheep down here. So yeah, it was very difficult to put sheepskin around that bundle, that we've done it. And we keep things in proportion. And as I say, a lot of it comes back to the learning and stock judgment side of things, where you can actually top and tail things as you go. The point is, the difference, we do it every day, every week. You guys do the sort once a year. So we continue to evolve and learn and pass that back to you, yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm not sure what your opinion was when you saw the mob to start with, but what are you seeing in here now? A different view? These animals have all gone through the same pressure from September right through to this day, right through that country up there. We've got some reasonable bodies in here for the environment you've been in. Quite excellent, in fact. That's where you get the longevity from, out of animals that can sustain a drought, and they'll produce, you'll have 3 budgets here on the farm, these 3 groups of animals. And they'll differ to the extreme of one being very profitable and the third one, costing you so much. So let's all identify them and kick them for touch. And you'll move back to profit.
You lambs in the yard there.
Yep. You'd almost think we're on 3 farms as these come out. There's the mix, the genetic mix in the national flock. So it's your choice. In fact, these animals, when you feel the top 2 groups and see their loin, if you're on top of them, you'd be quite surprised. They're not the biggest sheep, but hey, it's not about the biggest animal. It's about 3/4 size and the form, and in proportion, as I talked today, that's the most productive and efficient unit you'll find. So it's not a new science or a new discovery. We've been working at it for a long time, and here's the difference here now. You can see the difference with that group up there to these 2 here. 3 separate flocks. In fact, there are 4 because I didn't put in the real inferior sheep that felt the pressure up there. It's good to have a bit of pressure. Helps genetic selection. So what would that be like on a good year? Normal for this area. Quite tremendous. You see the different form in this group versus the one on the hill? Quite different. But there lies the answer to a lot of your problems. Food conversion efficiency. Maximising return off your kill sheet. Getting that wool into $1.35 above market price. Farming's a good choice if you farm with animals like this. These animals are expressing their genetic ability to the max. No question. Right.
That's good. Thanks, Ian. I think extremely interesting, and he must have answered all the questions because he had done. Very, very good. I think just saying here, I've forgotten this guy's name, but yeah, we're talking. Ian's probably told us to spend more time looking at the back of our sheep. Invariably, when we draft them, we're looking at the front, and yeah, as you said on one of those slides, that you see a lot more from the back. So thank you very much. Very interesting and very worthwhile.